In my last What If video, where I deciphered how well Pussycat would have done had it not been disqualified in Series 3, I mentioned how from this point forward I would only discuss what would happen in the series that the incident took place. This is because of time restraints and the fact that the domino effect each of these scenarios would have on other Robot Wars series would be too big of a task. Somewhat annoyingly, however, upon doing this technique with my last two What If videos, I realised this led to them being rather short. I can't really justify uploading a video that barely breaks 3 minutes when my upload schedule is weaker than a wet paper bag. So I decided that from this point on, all What If videos will be numbered and contain 3 What If scenarios. That way you get 3 videos for the price and length of 1. If there are any What If scenarios that require more attention, then they will definitely get their own video, but this is the way I hope to tackle smaller scenarios. There have been 8 What If videos so far, so I'll just wing it and number this part 9 and go from there. I'm Anderson013 the Robot Wars Guru, and this is 3 more What If scenarios. In Heat C of Series 4, you know, the shit one, number 5 seed's Firestorm II stormed through its heat. And by stormed through, I mean limped through by the skin of its teeth. Firestorm II was a huge disappointment for me. I loved the first one from Series 3 and I was excited to see what this newer version could do, only for it to barely win its heat and then finally wake up against Dominator II, only to then lose via the judges. One of the biggest issues with this machine was that it had not 1 but 2 questionable wins to make it to the semis. The first was its Heat semi-final win over Bolt from the Blue. Many people to this day, including the incredibly bitter team captain, believe that Bolt from the Blue was robbed here, and it's easy to understand why. The second was its Heat final against the Morgue, where Firestorm pitted itself. However, because the Morgue was wedged onto the pit first and couldn't get away, it was considered in the pit by the judges and therefore was pitted before Firestorm. Whilst I do agree that these decisions are technically correct, they certainly weren't convincing wins for the supposed 5th favourite robot to win the series, and many fans have wondered what would have happened if it went the other way. Well, had Bolt from the Blue won the judges' nod, it would have gone through to the Heat final. The fact that Bolt from the Blue is a Heat finalist in this timeline makes my fucking skin crawl. Where it would face the Morgue. Christ, what a miserable battle that would have been. Being honest, there would be no winners if this battle had actually taken place. The live crowd would have died of boredom and Robot Wars would have been banned as a result. And here we were thinking that heavy rotating weaponry was the biggest risk of robot combat. Anyway, the Morgue would win this one because it could actually move outside of a 2-meter radius, and as useless as its weaponry was, it could at least push reasonably well. Remember, Bolt from the Blue Slipper could only fire 4 to 5 times a fight and was so spindly it would struggle to get underneath, well, anything. This win would send the Morgue through to the semi-finals where it would lose to Dominator II like the jobber it was. I'm sorry, but if anyone can think of a convincing argument as to why the Morgue would win this, I'd love to hear it. This also answers the question of what if the Morgue beat Firestorm in the Heat final, because if it had beaten it, it would have still fought Dominator II and still lost. Speaking of silly self-pittings, one of the more famous instances was that of Razer Blade in Series 3. In its second round battle against Suicidal Tendencies, Razer Blade seemed sure for a Heat final spot as its opponent's track gave up the ghost. Gee, that sounds familiar. Much like that Heat final battle a year later, this battle completely turned on its head after Razer Blade pitted itself, sort of, after trying to pit Suicidal Tendencies. It was freed later on in the battle and lasted to the judges, who ruled that Razer Blade was indeed in the pit and shouldn't have been freed, giving Suicidal Tendencies the win. It should be noted that this was before the half mobility rule was implemented, meaning a robot could be dead on one side but still be considered mobile, so the decision was fair in my opinion. But this has led many to wonder what would have happened if Razer Blade hadn't pitted itself. Well, it goes without saying, but it would have beaten Suicidal Tendencies. Suicidal Tendencies was finished here and only won due to a driving error on Razer Blade's part. It's an obvious win for Razer Blade here. After winning that classic, it would then fight Mace 2, and that's where the run would end. I've seen a few people say that they think Razer Blade would win this, but I just can't see it myself. Razer Blade's narrow front really did its flipper no favours as it struggled to get underneath anything. In its entire Series 3 campaign, it failed to lift a single opponent, and over its 2 series of competing, it never succeeded in flipping another robot over. Not even robots that died like Red Dragon and Terrible. Mace 2 meanwhile was better driven, easier to control, and had a lifter that could easily get under other robots. Think about it, Mace 2 managed this amazing flip on Bigger Brother in the semi-finals. You really think it couldn't take out a robot with enough ground clearance to fit a bus under? Case and point closed, I'm afraid. And for our final scenario of this video, we once again have another reckless self-pitting situation. Dominator II Series 6 one wasn't what you would call incredibly impressive. It did literally nothing in its opening bout, was lucky to beat Smidgy after Growler got a bit too close, and whilst it did earn its victory against Hydra, damn was it close to getting booted from Series 6 early. It finally woke up in the semi-finals against Bigger Brother, but against Tornado it looked to be the end. Then out of nowhere, Tornado got bummed by Matilda and crash landed on the very edge of the pit. Many fans thought Dominator 2 had scraped another victory, only for Tornado to drive away and Dominator 2 to fall victim to the smoking square by driving in. Fuck's sake. Many a fan has wondered since what would have happened if Tornado had landed in the pit. After all, it would have given us a completely different champion for Series 6. If Tornado had fallen into the abyss, Dominator 2 would have gone on to fight Firestorm 4 in the grand final, and whilst it managed to overcome the Durham Destroyer in Series 4, I feel at this point in both Roberts' careers Firestorm could take the W. Firestorm 2 was an utter dud being honest, but by the time Series 6 came around the team had ironed out all the wrinkles and Graham Bones' driving was immaculate. Dominator 2 proved a few times this series that it could be easily flipped and that its axe was easy to avoid. It would go to the judges, but this time I feel Firestorm would clinch it. In the 3rd and 4th place playoff it would face Terahertz and win in my opinion. Dominator 2 was an awkward shape for an axe to strike properly and Terahertz had a lovely flat top for that axe to get sunk into. Also, it's a minor note, but Terahertz did kill itself in the actual playoff we got, so it's not too hard to imagine it happening again here. And Razer would beat Firestorm in the grand final because of course it would. It happens every fucking time. And that's it for this video. Do you agree with my theories or do you think I'm a wonky spoon? What do you guys think would have happened? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Anderson913, the Robots Guru, and I'll see you next time.